Hello everyone. I'm here to recap a 41-17 win for the Minnesota Vikings over the Miami Dolphins. Now this drops Miami to 7-7. Ryan Tannehill was 11 of 24. He threw for 108 yards, a 4.5 average yards per 4.5 average. No touchdowns, no interceptions. He was sacked 9 times and he lost 71 yards on the 9 times. So they're really only credited with 37 passing yards this game. And the quarterback rating was 59.0 for Ryan Tannehill today. Kalen Ballage was the leading rusher for him, 12 carries, 123 yards, a 10.3 average, and obviously all led by that one 75-yard rushing touchdown. Frank Gore, he left the game early, but he had 5 carries for 14 yards, 2.8 average. Brandon Bolden had 1 carry for 12. Kenyon Drake 1 for 6. Ryan Tannehill 1 for 1. So 20 carries for 156 yards and a 7.8 average. Amendola was their leading receiver. He caught 3 of his 8 targets for 30 yards. Kenyon Drake caught all 3 of his targets for 28 yards. Mike Gesicki, 2 of 3 for 23 yards. Kenny Stills caught 1 of his 3 targets for 17. Bryce Butler caught 1 of 3 for 12. Devontae Parker and Nick O'Leary each had 1 target, and neither of them caught that 1 target. And Kalen Ballage caught his only target for -2 yards. They were 2 of 12 on third down, so 17%. They were 0 of 1 in the red zone. They were actually +1 in the turnover margin, and they held the ball for 26 minutes and 44 seconds. Now Minnesota, they improved to 7-6-1 after today. Kirk Cousins, 14 of 21 for 215 yards, 10.2 average, 2 touchdowns, 1 pick, sacked twice, lost 17 yards on those sacks, and a rating of 112.2. Now, running the ball, Minnesota ran the ball today. It was nice. Dalvin Cook led them, 19 carries, 136 yards, 7.2 average, 26 was his long, and he had 2 scores. Latavius, 15 carries for 68 yards, a 4.5 yard carry average. 18 was the long. Diggs carried it once for 9 yards, and Kirk Cousins had 5 for 7. So 40 carries for 220 yards, 5.5 yards a pop, and 3 touchdowns today. Not bad. So, but that obviously means some of the passing game numbers, maybe not to where we've seen in the past. Tyler Conklin today was the leading receiver for the Minnesota Vikings. He caught 2 of his 3 targets for 53 yards, 26.5 average per catch, and his long was 33. Diggs caught 4 of 7 for 49 yards, a 12.3 average, and a touchdown. Robinson 2 of 2 for 44 yards, long of 40 on that touchdown there. And Dalvin Cook 1 of 2 for 27 yards. Rudolph 3 of 3 for 23. Thielen caught both of his targets for 19 yards, and Treadwell did not catch his only target. They were 5 of 13 on third down, so that's 38%. 4 of 6 in the red zone, that's 67%. -1 in the turnover margin. And they were able to hold the ball for 33 minutes and 16 seconds. Now, comes the part where I can actually say things. And offensively, I think we had some ups and downs during Stefanski's first game, and I don't think Kirk Cousins played horribly. I think he could have played better at times, but I really think it was certainly a okay effort at the very least. And I don't necessarily blame him on the pick 6, because it's a quick screen that could just be a matter of going to the well one too many times, and it was just jumped. So I don't necessarily blame him on that one. And I think they figured out the more you give it to Dalvin Cook, the better you do. So obviously he carried the ball 19 times, and it was good. It was good. He was able to actually make people miss. He got out in space. We saw things that happen that don't usually happen with this team. And I think the O-line, it played wonderfully at times. Like, that first quarter was great. But at other times, they really struggled. We still have these moments of just offensive ineptitude, and that's really not good. And the other thing with the offensive line, A lot of penalties today. It felt like quite a bit of penalties today. So we need to cut down on those. Like we mentioned the pick six earlier, the, how we got into that third down situation in the first place was Dalvin Cook had a 19-yard run that was called back for a holding, and it just put us behind the sticks, and there was a false start, I think. Oh, that was a different one. I think this one was the elf line hands to the face. But too many penalties, inexcusable. They need to not do that. And they need to do better on third down. 38%, not going to cut it. And I'm just hoping, like, this was his first game, so I'm hoping Kevin Stefanski learned from this. And we'll hopefully see some tendencies and trends down the road. It's a little hard to tell from one game if this is exactly what this is going to be, but we will see later on in life. So, defensively, I do think we need to step up on run defense a little bit more. It's not just the 75-yard run. Because if you take out the 75-yard run, they still allowed 5.23 yards per carry, which is still well above what they normally allow. So today was overall not a good day for the rush defense. So they need to step that up. And I think it was a great effort overall against the pass today. I thought the coverage was playing, it was going well. We saw the pass rush was getting there. I thought they were feeding off of each other. I thought we had a good thing going there. It was good. And Barr had 2 sacks today. Where has this been? We haven't really seen this since we got Barr, really. And the past 2 or 3 games here, we've seen him kind of be rushed a bit more. Maybe too little too late, but I like that they're finally doing it. It adds a whole nother dimension to this. And it was good. And going back to just, and luckily we're just able to force them into passing situations because, as I said, the rush defense wasn't that great today. But we were able to hold the ball and kind of put them in these areas where they needed to throw. And we did better with that. So that's kind of the strength of this team is the secondary and the pass rush. So force them to do that, and we're good to go. Special teams, Bailey, you made all your kicks. Good for you. Do that every week, please. And Charles had himself a day. He averaged 23.2 yards of punt return, and he had a long of 70 where he was just tripped up by Leonte Carew. And overall, I think there were some things that do need to get cleaned up. The rush defense and just these moments of offensive ineptitude and what kind of seems to happen every time we build up a pretty decently sized lead, which is they come back somehow in some way. That usually ends up happening. And it's almost 50-50 whether or not we hang on to that lead. And that's another thing that seems to be a Zimmer thing. That needs to get fixed, and I'm really hoping it does someday. Not really counting on it, though, because we've seen this throughout years. But it was ultimately a very balanced team win that ended up having a pretty dominant score for us at the end, even though you could argue it was a little closer than that. Than that score really was. And this was actually pretty good at overall. I know Kirk's numbers were down, at least in yardage totals, but that's because we were able to run the ball, we ate the clock, and we forced our good defense out there to do what they do best, which is go get the passer. If you can hold the ball and convert in the red zone, that's when this team is at its best. Because even if they are getting good carries, you can only do that so often if you are able to pretty much force them into no-time scenarios, where we kind of saw them later today. And this is closer to the winning formula, I think, for this team than we've seen all year. And I'm kind of hoping this builds a foundation for Stefanski. And we'll see where it goes from there. I would like to know what you guys think down in the comments below. And till next time, I bid you all adieu.